Screencast here is going to cover Chapter 3, Lesson 1 only. This is kind of a lengthy one, excuse me, for InDesign. Let's go ahead and get into it. Do Command O to open, and in our data files, we're going to be looking for 3-1. If you get a little box pops that says this document contains 35 links, go ahead and click OK. Go ahead and just look at it. What we have here is a pre-made document, and if you come up and open your Pages palette up at the top right, you can actually go through and you can click on each page to see what you have. We're essentially going to make this document by first making the layout. On your Pages palette, if you double click up here in A Master, this is the structure for the entire block. Then when you click on each page, you actually get to see what each one looks like. If you go up to View on the menu, go down to Screen Mode, and go down to Presentation, you can see what this thing actually looks like and how we're going to make it. So in order to start that, let's go ahead and close that document. Don't save it. In order to start that, we've got to make our own new document. So what we're going to do is first go to InDesign, up at the top, Preferences, Units and Increments. This just makes sure everything's set up before we go. On your units and increments, make sure horizontal and vertical are both set to inches, and then click OK. Now let's create a new document. File New, Document, or Command N. So for this document, how we're going to set this up is we're going to start by saying the number of pages is going to be 10. We're going to start on page 1. This is the intent to be printed. Go ahead and leave facing pages checked. Our page size, width's going to be 6.25. Height's going to be 4.75. Double check that. Our orientation is actually going to be a landscape. If you hover over, you can actually see the screen tip for landscape. We're going to have 2 columns, and our gutter between the 2 columns is going to be 0.1667 inches, and our margin is going to be 0.5. Now, one note on the margin, if you type in like 1 inch for the margin, if this piece of chain is pushed down, it changes all the margins. So we want 0.5 inches. If I just hit tab, it automatically updates all the other ones. Kind of a neat feature. Go ahead and click OK if you've got that set up. And as soon as we have that set up, I'm going to do a Command-Shift-S. And we're going to save this one as setup. We're going to save it as setup. Let's go to File in the menu, and let's go to Document Setup. So it's File, Document Setup. Document Setup here, let's make sure everything's straight. We'll say intent was to print. And we're going to say Start Page is, let's change that to 2. I'm going to click OK. So if you look at it here, over on your Pages panel, we've got 2 through 11 as far as pages actually go, even though 11 is not an actual page. But we've got our spreads. We've got, if you double click on A Master up here, A Master is the underlying structure that can change everything at once. We'll be working in this, but we're also going to be setting up our entire document at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and close the pages, actually leave pages open. Double click on A Master. This is probably pretty huge. Double click on A Master up here to have that selected. And first thing we're going to do is go to Window, Workspace, make sure Essentials is on. And then we're going to go to Layout on the menu and go down to Margins and Columns. So on Margins and Columns, we're going to set the number of columns from 2 to 3 now. So just because in our document, if we screwed up and said, oh, I only want 2, and then we really needed 3, you can just still add that in later. So we'll have 3 selected, and make sure that the margins, we're going to change to 0.125. 0.125. And if I hit tab, it updates all those margins. Gutter stays the same. Click OK. So now here's what our document looks like, and we're on the master layer. I'm going to go back to pages and make sure once again that I'm on that master layer, and then I'm going to close pages. So let's work with guides, because in InDesign we're going to be working with guides, and here's what we're going to make. This is what we're headed to right here. So follow me specifically. We're going to make that. So back on our document now, we're going to make a vertical ruler move a little bit. For example, we looked at this a couple chapters ago. If I click on the vertical ruler up top, and if you don't see your rulers, do Command R. If I click on a ruler and drag down, notice that when I get to the pages, it cuts off to the first page. Now if I hold down Command, you probably hear me doing that. If I hold down Command, it drops that ruler on top of the entire document. So I want that ruler somewhere on the document. I'm just going to let go of my mouse, then let go of Command, so I have that, that guide there. Now, if you want to move that guide, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can come back and you can take your selection tool and you can click on it and you can move it. And I just actually kind of messed that one up because I was inside the document. I want to make sure I'm outside the spread so I can change it on the entire document. Or we can also set it up to where it's a specific location. So please do this. Click on the ruler on the outside of the spread. Come up to your panel up top, your options bar, and in the y-axis, so your y-axis is your up and down just like in math class, type in 2.5. Hit enter. Notice that snaps down on your ruler to 2.5 inches. So rather than trying to get it specifically on there, if you want it on 2.5, you can just snap it down right into 2.5. Let's drag another ruler down. Hold down Command, drag another ruler down, and I'm going to put it underneath the first one. I'm going to go ahead and click on that ruler, that guide rule again, and I'm going to change my Y to 3.5, hit enter. Snaps it down to 3.5 inches. Now just to make sure on a preference here, let's go to InDesign, Preference, Units and Increments, and verify that our rulers are set to the origin of spread and our horizontal and vertical is set to inches, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Go ahead and click OK. Let's go ahead and drag a vertical rule on this time. So let's drag a vertical ruler from the left. And I'm going to hold down, I don't need to hold down Command on this time because I'm just going to put this on the second document. I'm going to put this somewhere in the neighborhood of, 8 point something. I'm going to go ahead and let go. Do my best to try to put it in this gutter over here. I'm going to click on that ruler and I'm going to go up to my X this time, my X axis, and I'm going to type in 8.35. Now I know that that ruler guide is right there on 8.35 inches because that's going to be key when I start setting things up. Let's try to focus back on the horizontal rule. Let's select the first horizontal guide that we positioned at 2.5 inches, and I'm going to click on it outside the spread. And let's change our y-axis from 2.5 to 3.4. So now I've got one at 3.4 and 3.5. Let's go up to the ruler and grab, holding Command, another rule and drag it down and position this one then at 3.25. So we should have 3 horizontal rules looking like this. 2 that are about, a quarter inch away, and then the other one's a little bit farther away. And we have our vertical rule over here on the right. I'm just going to click to deselect. Now we're going to drop in some text boxes. Now if you can look over here at your Tools panel on the left, if you look over here you can see a foreground, what looks like foreground background color. This top one's called your fill, this bottom one's called your stroke. As you can see right now, stroke is set to black, fill is set to none. If I flip those, then there it is. I have my fill and my stroke there. I want fill on top, stroke on bottom, and our stroke I want to change to default, so just a none. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to my options bar at the top, and I'm going to change, this is my fill here, this is my stroke, to none. So now stroke and fill are at none, and I can see my foreground foreground stroke, foreground fill, that there is none selected on both. That just keeps things from being applied as I add shapes and text boxes. Now let's go to the Type tool. And on the Type tool, I'm going to drop in a text box on the far right side of the document. And I'm just going to put it in, like so. We're going to change it, but that just gets me started. So rightmost column, and then I'm going to go to my Selection tool. So I'm going to go to my Selection tool. And on my Selection tool, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the text box, I'm going to take the far right sizing, and I'm going to drag it all the way out to the edge of the purple line. That's another guide. And to the left of the purple line. And I'm going to drag it down from the center to the topmost ruler guide. So it sits right on that ruler guide, and you'll see that it snaps. But what if I want to change the height of the actual box as well? So leaving the text box selected, let's come up here to our options bar. Here's our X and our Y axis we've been messing with. Here's our width and our height. Let's change the height to 1.375. Hit enter. Our width's going to be at like something about 1.88889, somewhere around that neighborhood, because it's a width that's already set. Now once you get your height set, if you have to shift it down, go ahead and move the box back down so it sits on top of that rule. Notice when you click off of the text box, it appears to disappear, but when you're on it, you can see it just because of all the guidelines that are there. Now I want to make an exact copy of this one. And a keystroke we've learned already to make an exact copy would be to hold down Alt and click and drag to move this over to the next column on the left. Make sure it's centered up on top of the guides. Let go. So now we have two text boxes right there on the right. Okay. Now these rulers, if I'm looking at these rulers, this light blue is starting to throw me off. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my Selection tool, and I'm going to click on the vertical ruler. The vertical rule, and it turns blue. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to select the other three horizontal rules. So at this point in time, I have all four rulers selected, and that's it. I don't have any of the text boxes selected, just the rules. Okay, now that I have those selected, I'm going to come up to Layout on the menu. I'm going to go down to Ruler Guides, and I'm going to go to the color, and I'm going to change my color of the ruler guides to red, and then click OK. When I click off of them, they turn red. So now in my document, my purple defines my columns, blue is my text boxes, and then red are my rulers. Red for rulers kind of makes sense. When I click off the pasteboard here, I'm not selecting anything. This is what your document should look like. And keep in mind, this is the document that we're headed for. We're going to make all these colored boxes next. And these aren't text boxes, these are actually shapes. But you can see our ruler guides are still in here. So in our document now, we're going to create some tint frames. So over on the left on your Tools panel, we've got a Shapes button right above the scissors. And that has Ellipse and Polygon tool, so I'm going to stay on the Rectangle tool. And on the Rectangle tool, I'm going to come over here to my far right. And I'm just going to just drop a little rectangle on there. That's my Rectangle tool. Now if I get back on the Selection tool, now I can actually move it around and change how it actually functions. Okay, so Rectangle tool, there it is. Now let's change the width, height, and the actual color of it. So let's go to Object. Well, actually, let's go to Window, and then let's go down to Object Layout, right here in the middle, and then let's open up the Transform panel. With the Transform panel here now, this shows me my width and height and anything else that I do to it. So let's drag on our rectangle here. Let's drag the leftmost sizing to the purple column here to snap it up. Actually, my bad. All the way to the red ruler. So let's drag it all the way to the red ruler here. And let's drag the top part to the edge of the document and the right part to the right edge of the document. Let's go up to our options bar up top and let's find the fill box. With the fill box, I'm going to click the drop down arrow and I'm just going to click on this yellow right here. Notice that turns the box then yellow, and now I have that little bit of tint. So our width now is somewhere around 4.15 inches. That's what our width should be. Let's change the height. So the height, I'm just going to come here to the transform box. I'm actually going to type this one in. Let's change our height to 1.35 inches, and that's going to snap it down. I'll move my transform box all the way. So I've got a yellow box up top, and I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to get a copy of that box. I'm going to put that copy of that box down here towards the bottom, and I'm going to let go. It's a direct copy, but we are going to change it just a little bit. Hold down Alt, it drops a copy down, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take the topmost sizing handle and I'm going to snap it to the bottom horizontal rule, and I'm going to take the left sizing of that rectangle and I'm going to drag it all the way to the far left side of the document, all the way to the edge of the page. So now your document looks like this. I've got my two text boxes. I've got a box up top that's yellow and one giant box that's yellow at the bottom. Okay, let's go ahead and do some more boxes. So let's go to the rectangle tool and let's drop in a rectangle of, and I'm just gonna draw one out right here. And I'm gonna change the color of this one to blue. So I have a blue rectangle. I'm going to get back on my selection tool. Now we can actually change the sizing. I'm going to take the corner one, the corner sizing handle, I'm going to put it on the top left edge of the document. I'm going to take the right and I'm going to drag it all the way out to the vertical rule over by the yellow box. And I'm going to take the bottom sizing and I'm going to put it all the way down to the middle horizontal ruler guide down there towards the bottom. We could manually type that in, but notice our width is about 8.34, height's about 3.4 inches. I'm going to close the transform box. I don't need it anymore. And now let's look at the line tool. So I've got three boxes here, and I've got my two text boxes. Let's look at the line tool. So I'm going to click off the pasteboard. I'm going to come over here to the line tool. Line tool is going to be determined with the stroke. So if I come up here to the stroke dropdown, I'm going to select black. And then I'm going to change my size of the stroke to 4 point. That's how thick the line is. And I'm going to draw a line right on top of this ruler, this bottom horizontal rule. And if I hold shift, I can actually get a straight line. So if I hold shift, I get a straight line all the way through. And I'm going to come out and I'm going to release it on the edge of the document on the other side. When I go to my selection tool and I click off, then I can see I have this nice dark black line all the way across my image. I'm going to go back to my other document here. So we're almost there. We've got our boxes. I've got these little blue boxes down here that are going to be places for some pictures eventually. So let's go ahead and set those up as well. I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool. And on my rectangle tool, I'm going to change my fill color to, well, I'm going to draw my rectangle first before I change my color. I'm going to draw one right about, down here. And I'm going to take the stroke back to 0 on that rectangle, and I'm going to change my fill color to that light blue. So let's go ahead and get this thing sized up correctly. I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag the left side all the way out to the edge of the document, because then the X would be reading at 0. And I'm going to come up to my options bar and I'm going to change my Y. I want my Y to be reading at, let's see, 1.8. And I want my height to actually be reading at 1, and my width to be reading at 1.8. And actually, let's change that yellow. Let's change not the Y, not yellow, the Y. Let's go 3.6 on the Y. So for our new box, we should have 0 in the X, 3.6 in the Y, 1.8 inches wide and 1 inch height. So now we have this kind of perfectly shaped rectangle down here according to what we wanted to make. Now I'm going to make a copy of it. I'm going to make a copy of it by going just holding down Alt, and I'm going to drag it out to the right. I'm going to put it about an 1/8 of an inch off. And you just kind of take a guesstimate. It doesn't have to be perfect for this one. Nice little blue box, how we have it, and let's try a different way to make a copy this time. I'm going to go to Object on the menu. I'm going to go to Transform Again, and I'm going to say Transform Again. Gives me a blue box directly this and the same width. That's probably better than just dragging one over because now I know I have it the exact same width apart. So I'm going to do that 2 more times. Object, Transform Again, Transform Again. Object, Transform Again, Transform Again. Now I have 5 of them. When I have my 5, I'm going to select all of them by holding Shift. And I'm just going to move them in here kind of towards the middle. Oop, it's probably a little too much. About like so. I want it sitting on the bottom. I want them sitting here on the bottom of my column. And a little bit more to the right. This one doesn't have to be perfect because it's designed for print. So just like this. So we've got our document, and we have these this one giant blue square. We've got some ruler guides. We've got a yellow box up here, big yellow box in here, 5 little blue boxes, a stroke, and 2 text boxes. Go ahead and save that document, and we will continue in the next lesson.